Welcome in to the newest episode of the Hoth Hangout podcast. Glad to have you here with us, joining us for episode 82 of the pod. Where in today's episode, we are going to be talking all things Acolyte predictions, what our thoughts are moving into episodes 1 and 2 of the series next week. Going to be talking about some of the characters, some of the reviews that came out within the past week or so of some people who got early screenings. It's going to be a very exciting anticipatory episode in expectations of next week as they are getting closer and closer to the release date of episodes 1 and 2 of the Acolyte. I want to say a quick reminder that if you're not yet subscribed to the Hot Hangout podcast over on YouTube, check us out there. Hit that subscribe button for the video version of every podcast, as well as our reactions to all the latest Star Wars episodes and shows, like the Acolyte, which will be releasing two separate reactions next week on the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel. You can contact us via email at hothhangout@gmail.com with your Star Wars thoughts or questions or otherwise, and we'd love to showcase them here on the pod. You can find the Hoth Hangout podcast anywhere you get your pods, including both Spotify and Apple. And if you're listening on either of those platforms or any platform that allows you to leave a 5-star review, leave a 5-star review on the pod. We would appreciate it very much. And it does also allow other people that love Star Wars to more easily find the podcast as well. You can find us on the socials at Hoth Hangout, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or X. We are findable on each of those platforms. Once again, that's at Hoth Hangout. The Discord server for the Hoth Hangout community Discord is findable down in the show notes of today's episode below. Check it out, hit that link, and join the Hoth Hangout Discord server with all the awesome stuff going on over there with various Star Wars channels and lots of amazing people as well. Moving into our episode today, we also want to tease the question of the week, and it's simply: Are you excited for the Acolyte? Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments or on the socials from today's episode. Scale of 1 to 10. How's everyone feeling about the Acolyte, including you, Joey? What's up? How's it going, man? How are you feeling about the Acolyte as we are officially less than a week away?
It seemed like it came pretty quickly. I thought I could have swore we just finished Bad Batch, and
I
here
know,
we are
right?
with the Acolyte. I guess
Yeah.
we did have that week break in the middle there too, so that probably helped out with the speed of the time between the two shows. But yeah, I'm super excited for the show. The more and more marketing that we've gotten over the past couple, really the last week, it feels like we've been seeing a lot of like little featurettes, a lot of like little interviews. It seems like there were a couple of premieres that you mentioned that have come out, or that and people are reacting to, and critics have had to be able to say what they wanted to say about the show. So yeah, it's definitely Acolyte season, and we are all here ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, just to that point, it feels like the entire YouTube page for the official Star Wars has just nonstop been releasing trailers and teasers like almost every day. There was a period there where in 5 days they released 6 trailers or teasers. And
Hmm.
they've kind of cooled off here in the past few days,
Right.
but they're really going all out for the marketing on this show. And
Let me ask you something. So my buddy sent me a message, and he said, they've been really ramping up on the marketing. I think that means that the show's bad, and they're just showing everything right now just because they think it's tested badly. What are your thoughts? Are there conspiracy thoughts around that theory?
I mean, I definitely understand the thought process of that theory. I don't feel like it's inherently true that, like, just because the marketing is, like, really, over the top, that means they're compensating for maybe a lack of quality of the show. And recent critic reviews would suggest that that's also not the case, which is something we'll be talking about here in a couple minutes. Just that there was an early screening of the show. I think it was the first 4 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, which is 50% of the show, was shown to I don't know how many critics were there, but I feel like it was a sizable audience based on how many people have reported back their opinions on the first 4 episodes, and it seems like the majority of thoughts are positive thus far. So, I mean, you and I, the first time we watched the trailer, immediately this was before, like, any of like, there was any hate comments or anything, because it had literally just come out,
before all that happened,
Yeah, and we were both like, "Wow, that looks pretty good." And then we waited about 2 hours and we're like, "Oh, people are upset by this."
Yep.
So, I mean, that's another reason why I enjoy just watching stuff right when it comes out with you, because it's like we can just react to it in a fresh way
Yeah,
that doesn't have
in
to
a
be
genuine
influenced.
way, yeah.
Yeah,
Unsoiled, unsullied by any other opinions.
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, I'm hopeful. I mean, the recent news with the critics' reviews and everything I've seen from the trailer, it feels like it's gonna be like a detective mystery show, but kind of from
Mhm.
obviously from a Star Wars angle. So, count me in for that. Yeah. No offense to your friend who thinks the show's gonna be bad. Um, I guess in that same regard, that gives us an opportunity to move right into some of our news pieces we wanted to focus on, all of which are centered directly around the Acolyte. One that I really already mentioned was that there was a sort of a compilation of critic reviews that was released here within the past few days or so, and we didn't have all of them that we were going to talk about because I think in total there was like maybe 10 or even a dozen critics that were quoted in this article on direct.com. But we did pick out a couple here, and I was just going to read them briefly, and then maybe we can talk about each one. First one was from Screen Rant. Joe Deckelmeyer from Screen Rant says Star Wars: The Acolyte gives me Kill Bill vibes. Every episode left me wanting more in a good way. We've seen so much about the fall of the Jedi, but this show explores what the Jedi were like during peacetime, which is quite fascinating. Amanda Steinberg is outstanding. So high praise for one of the leading actors. We get more kind of, I guess, about this idea that it's taking place during a time that is supposed to be peaceful, but is obviously there's this, assassin running amok, and they're trying to figure out who it is. And the Kill Bill reference. Have you seen Kill Bill, by the way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
so this is the I guess the '90s child in me that probably needs to watch this movie because I know I've seen it.
What? Oh,
I
okay.
I
You have
have
seen
seen
it,
it,
but
but it was
it's
like
been
one
a
of
while.
those movies that was always on, like, FX back in the day, and
Mhm.
I don't think I've ever sat down and watched Kill Bill from start to finish. I've just caught, like, pieces of the movie over the course of years. So I get the reference, but I also, like, don't fully get the reference, but I think I understand where we're going. Do you feel like that could be an apt comparison? The Acolyte is,
I
like, Kill
the
Bill vibes?
when I read that, I was actually shocked. I'm like, "How is this Disney Star Wars movie or, series gonna be compared to Kill Bill's kind of, could be a little
Bloody.
bit gruesome."
Yeah.
So, um, to even mention it in the same sentence makes me raise an eyebrow, of course. What I particularly like about this particular, critique here is the high praise for Amanda Steinberg. I'm excited for that, and in fact, in the article that we read from the direct.com, not the only critic that gave her high praise, from if I remember correctly, too. So,
Yeah.
um, definitely a pretty important role in the show. So it's strong. It's important to have a strong character, strong actor in that role. So it seems like she hit it out of the park there. So I'm excited to see how she does.
Especially if she's playing more than one role, question
Right?
mark? I don't
Oh,
know. We'll be talking about that later too. Second quote was from Gizmodo's Germain Lucier. I pronounced that in a French way. I hope that's how you pronounce your name, Germain. I hope. Uh, Germain said, "Beholden to nothing except being Star Wars. The Acolyte soars. It's an interesting, fun, character-driven mystery with real stakes that you care about, bolstered by all the fixings that make it Star Wars. Saw the first 2 episodes and loved them. I'm unclear, like, some of these critics seem to have seen 2
hmm
and some of them have seen 4, and I don't
yeah.
understand what the distinction is, but,
How much money
um,
they paid to get in?
yeah, yeah. Give us 50,000 extra and you can see 2 more episodes.
That's right.
No, but yeah, here, another positive critic praise here, citing mainly the character-driven mystery is really
hmm
for me, I love shows like that. I love books like that. I love TV shows. I love movies like that. Anything that has mystery to it, and at the end, it's like, oh my gosh, like that's the payoff of a good mystery for me.
hmm
Um, which is something I hope will be in the Acolyte as well, having there be this reveal that you didn't see coming.
Right.
If this show has that, ooh, that'll be some icing on the cake. Um, but yeah, I'm
So
I'm
which
looking forward
so
to it.
which character is going to be having the fake mask, and it's going to be
I
old man
so
Withers or whatever?
so we're gonna talk about some of the characters later, and I have a theory about which
Oh,
character it's gonna be. So I'll
I was
save it
completely
for
joking, but
I you should have known I have a theory about that. I
a
I
Scooby Doo reference. I thought
yes.
we left that in the Mandalorian or
I,
whatever, or
a
in the Mandalorian.
as a kid who watched way too much Scooby Doo, I cannot help myself.
Scooby
Um,
Doo podcast coming up soon.
ooh, I would do it.
Shocking.
Let's analyze the villain in this episode, and yeah, that'd be kind of interesting. I don't know how it would fare, but let us know. Should we do an offshoot Scooby Doo podcast? Speaking of podcasts, our third and final quote that we wanted to reference is from the movie podcasts, Anthony Gagliardi. Hopefully, I said that name right as well. Anthony says 4 episodes into Star Wars: The Acolyte, and it's a mixed experience. This is one of the very few negative reviews that we were able to see on the
Actually, the
website.
only one I think
Yeah,
from that site
yeah,
that wasn't positive, fully
right,
positive,
right.
I should say.
Yeah. Anthony went on to say the lore hints at Knights of the Old Republic potential, yet the pacing occasionally lags. While the fight scenes are engaging, they often feel misplaced. Hoping to see stronger performances and a clearer narrative direction soon. Um, I mean, I could kind of see what Anthony is saying. Maybe it feels like we've actually seen a fair amount of the fight scenes in the
Yep.
trailers, especially the one between Carrie Ann Moss and Amanda Steinberg. I feel like we've seen a ton of that scene. Um, I mean, I guess it's hard to say that they would feel misplaced without having actually seen the show. Um, but it's worth noting that here's an example of a critic who didn't feel quite the same way that most of the others, it seems. Um, and I wanna ask him what he means by a mixed experience. Like,
Mhm.
that can mean very many different things. Like, are there good parts and bad parts?
Right.
Is it I don't know. I would love to. I mean, I guess we'll understand what he means here in a few weeks' time, but is there anything that stood out to you about this quote that wasn't so positive?
Well, I mean, the lore hints to Knights of the Old Republic seems like a good thing,
Sure.
because there is a lot of love in the Star Wars universe for Knights of the Old Republic. So I think that's probably where the mixed piece of it comes in,
Mhm.
where maybe the pacing and some of the fighting scenes may seem misplaced, but there seems to be some potential for uh, lore references to Knights of the Old Republic. So it seems like that's could be good for a grander scheme of things as well, a higher level 10,000-foot view of Star Wars, maybe that Knights of the Old Republic become more and more prevalent, more and more important into the storyline. So, you have to think strategically when you when you see these types of things. So, if that's something that and it's gonna blow right over my head because I never played it. So I'm gonna have to lean on you a little bit for for any of those references.
I wouldn't be shocked if they I mean, I think they're definitely gonna include High Republic stuff because that's the time
Oh, of
period
course.
we're in. But I wouldn't be shocked if we also get a lot of kinda, alluding to some of the other eras in the EU and the legends like Knights of the Old Republic, perhaps, and,
Mhm.
so that's another interesting conversation we could have at some point about because I don't think we're gonna see too many characters we're used to seeing, but if they decide to
Yeah.
slip in a few, we are gonna mention one actually in today's episode, so stay tuned for that, but all in all, being said, mostly positive reviews for those that watched the either 2 or 4 episodes that the critics showing. A couple negative ones here and there, only really one that we were able to find and showcase today, but, nothing that, for me at least, is deterring me from wanting to see the show any more than I already was. If anything, it's making me wanna see it more, so the other small piece of Acolyte news that we wanted to just touch on briefly, which we'll kind of continue to showcase throughout the duration of this podcast episode, is that there were official character posters. The HD versions were released. And so as we're going through today's episode, you'll be seeing, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, you'll be seeing those images on screen as we continue to go throughout. I believe it's just five, though. What are being considered the main five characters of Soul and Dara. I think it's Jeki, how you pronounced, Soul's Padawan's name, Elnaka, and then, of course, May, the main character, so, yeah, you'll be able to see um, those character posters throughout the duration of the video version of the podcast, and they do look pretty cool, I gotta say, I saw those and I was like, "Ooh, man, I'm
Yeah.
ready. I'm ready for these guys to be
What's
seen."
what's cool about them, it very in, me, it's very much like a trading card looking
Yeah, yeah.
type because it has kind of a front and back where the front is obviously the picture of the character. In the back, there's some, a little blurb on the character themselves. So it just reminded me of that. And so I'll be looking for that in my local Targets and Walmarts. I'm sure the Acolyte set will be out there soon
Oh,
enough.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have them. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they're already in production and on the way to
Oh,
the
yeah, they
stores
absolutely
right
are.
now. Yeah. Well, we're gonna continue with our Acolyte discussion here shortly. Real briefly, we do wanna touch on a couple comments that we received on recent videos, as well as, some feedback to the polls we released last week. First of all, we have 2 comments. The first one is from Spy on Sports. This was in reference to last week's episode of the podcast when we talked about our, characters we would most want to see in live action that have yet to make it to that form of Star Wars. Spy on Sports included in the comment my top 5 characters I'd love to see in live action in no particular order. Rowan Freemaker, who is from Lego Star Wars: The Freemaker Adventures. I actually have not played this game, so I need to do some
Oh,
educating of myself.
that's a series, Freemaker Adventures.
Even more educating I need to do. I didn't even know it was a series. The Freemaker Is that on Disney Plus?
I believe it is.
Oh, have you seen it?
Um, I've seen like one episode of it.
Okay, okay.
That'd be a fun thing to watch, I think.
Rowan Freemaker, a cool name nonetheless, but check it out
Makes
on
me
Disney
think of
Disney Plus.
whenever I see Rowan, I think of Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah, me too,
He's
me
the
too.
he's the Mr. Bean of Star Wars.
Yeah, yeah. The Nogri species was another one. I thought that was a very inventive one as well. Savage Opress, who I think may have made my honorable mentions last week, if I remember correctly.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, Prince Xizor, who's from Shadows of the Empire. I know of this character, but I don't know enough details about this character. So I would love to learn more. I believe this is the series that takes place post Return of the Jedi, if I'm not mistaken. But if there's any Star Wars Legends buffs out there, feel free to correct me on that if that seems inaccurate in any way. And then lastly, Timothy Zahn's Grand Admiral Thrawn. If you know, you know. Uh, I feel like it's worth saying there's a lot of people out there who are like, "That's not my Thrawn," when they
Yep.
see when they see him in Ahsoka or
I
when
think
they
I
see
think
him.
we have found one right here, by the way.
Wild Sports is a "That's not my Thrawn" kinda Star Wars fan. But, yeah, I like the list of 5 there. I need to do some educating of myself apparently, though, when it comes to Lego Star Wars, but I'm gonna be doing more of that, by the way, because 'cause I'm excited for Darth Jar Jar coming up here
That's right.
in the Lego show.
The
That's
What
gonna
If show?
the What If Lego show, yeah, that's gonna be pretty fun. The second and final comment we wanted to showcase was from Jake McBrick. Also, in reference to the same episode that we just discussed for Spy on Sports comment, Jake McBrick said the Mantis crew in live action would be nice. Joey, you and I know a lot about the Mantis crew from the 3 episodes of streaming that we did, that we did for Jedi Survivor here on the channel.
The whole 3, that's
Y
right.
Yeah, yeah. For those that don't know, the Mantis crew is the crew in Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, led by Cal Kestis. So, yeah, that would be really cool. Another example of some awesome characters being brought from kind of the video game realm of Star Wars into the, live action would be pretty neat to see. So, yeah, appreciate you, Spy on Sports, and Jake for leaving us those comments. Continue, those of you listening or watching this, leave us your comments based on today's episode, and we'd love to showcase them on next week's episode. We also asked last week, what Tales stories would you like to see next? In reference, or no, excuse me,
No,
which
no, no.
Star Wars character would you want to see even live action? I was reading
Yeah,
my thing from last week. Sorry. Which
my
Star
bad.
Wars character would you like to see in live action? The results of the poll were Asajj Ventress at 46%, Captain Rex at 15%, Plagueis at 15%, and other at a shocking 23%. But Asajj taking the crown here, which I think is what I voted for, if I remember correctly. Did you
Mhm.
vote on this one?
I put Plagueis in this one actually.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
on this
That'd
YouTube.
be
Yeah,
which, by the way, this show it's coming out, The Acolyte. I'd have to look at Plagueis's lifespan.
Lifetime. Yeah,
I'm
might be
pretty
around there.
sure
Yeah.
he's alive during the events of this show, so
Oh,
maybe we will see him. You never know.
prediction.
Yeah. We asked the same thing to those of you over on Twitter. The results were very similar with Asajj taking or no, excuse me, the results, were dissimilar with Captain Rex taking the first place in the votes with 40%. Asajj, Plagueis, and Other all coming in with 20% apiece. So, Captain Rex, the beloved of the voters on Twitter. So let us know what your thoughts are in regards to this week's poll as well. Stay on the lookout for that on the YouTube community tab as well as over on the Hoth Hangout Twitter feed. The question being something related to the Acolyte TBD, but check it out again on the YouTube community tab on the Hoth Hangout channel or over on the Hoth Hangout Twitter. Having said all of that, the time has arrived for our Acolyte predictions and just things we're generally looking forward to and introduction to some of the characters that we're going to talk about as well. Joey, I thought I'd start us off kind of just with a brief overview of how the show is being described. It's pretty generic, and I want to get your thoughts on kind of the way they are describing the show. It doesn't really give too much away, but it's described as a mystery thriller that will take viewers into a galaxy of shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. A former Padawan reunites with her Jedi master to investigate a series of crimes, but the forces they confront are more sinister than they ever anticipated. Uh, so building the hype, there's evil afoot. Two people reuniting are gonna you know, have to do something about it. There's this mysterious dark side powers in play. Anything that stood out in particular to you just from hearing that brief description?
I mean, the way they ended the forces they confront are more sinister than they ever anticipated. So, something that they have never seen before. They've been training all their lives as Jedi, and to finally come up to something that they will have to fight against that they may not make it past. And
Mm,
we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. That maybe not everyone makes it out of this one. So I think to have that threat in a time of peace can be very jarring to not only the people that are fighting for that peace, but everyone around it. It's going to have a ripple effect to everybody, and may cause division amongst citizens and people of the universe. Who is right, who is wrong. We saw a lot of that through Order 66. When they marked the Jedi as the criminals. They were the ones that were treasonous. So I don't know if this is something similar that we'll see here, but there's definitely that's what kind of grabbed me, is just seeing something that they had never seen in the past.
yeah. Yeah, the other kind of just over, uh, or maybe it's just like the thing that everyone is talking about is how they're gonna handle the fact that is this dark side force user a Sith? If it is a Sith, then let me ask you this question. Two different options. Let's say it's a Sith. Let's just say it is a Sith. Um, do the Jedi A cover it up so that the later Jedi don't know, which is why Kiadi Mundi says they've been extinct for a millennia. Do they be the people who know about the Sith somehow like don't make it out alive, or C
Hmm.
they just retcon it?
I would like it to not be C. Um,
Yeah.
but out of the other two, gosh, I mean, the guy called it Kill Bill, so maybe B. So maybe that's the way it'll go. Because having to hide something like that amongst all the Jedi, and this is a time where the Jedi are just on every street corner. They're just everywhere, it seems. So to have that type of, I don't know what else to call it, like a conspiracy theory where nobody mentions the Sith at all.
Mhm.
I'm expecting. See, and here's the thing, like if it is B, if it is like, the people that know about it don't make it out, that the remaining Jedi have to make some reason of why it happened. So
Right.
I don't know. It so it might be C. Coming back to that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know. I have a hard time believing it could be like a cover up thing where the rest of the Jedi just never finds out, but who knows? It could be. Um, Director Leslie Headland has taken a lot of, at least from the quotes that have been expressed in different media outlets, taken a lot of inspiration from like Legends and EU stuff. And as someone who aspires to be a connoisseur, but doesn't quite meet that my own expectation of the EU and Legends Star Wars stuff. I think this is exciting to have someone incorporating bits of Star Wars that aren't as widely known. I think it allows an avenue for fans to sort of get into aspects of what Star Wars is more so than just like the TV and the TV shows and the films. So, in that regard, I think there's a lot to be commended in regards to some of the decision making, or at least supposed decision making that we've heard about. Um, I just wanted to take note of that. And was there anything you wanted to touch on in regards to Leslie Headland and kind of her uh, directing of this show before we move on to some of the details of the characters of the show itself?
I mean, whenever we deal with directors, I just want them to be a fan of Star Wars too, and it
Yeah.
seems like that she is one of those, and into a place where definitely I have zero knowledge of, in Legends and EU source. So to have her at the helm to kind of bring those pieces of lore into canon, I think that is really good for Star Wars as a whole. I mean, we even had that one critic who might not have been too happy with everything, but he did mention, Knights of the Old Republic. So,
Mhm.
definitely if you've got somebody directing that can almost unite the two, there's always been a lot of division between, Disney Star Wars and, what was kind of left behind. If you can have somebody like Leslie kind of maybe not bring everything in, but at least bring some things in that, I don't know if you'd call it fan service necessarily, but if it makes sense in the story, then and you make it do a good job of it, then I think that's all the better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was pretty well said. Yeah, I mean the story that she has created takes place, like we said earlier, during a time of peace within the end of the High Republic era. And really, the Sith are thought to be extinct, which is kind of where our story begins. It's the discovery of this dark side Force user, like what's going on. There's Jedi who are being killed, and it's kind of at odds with the time period we find ourselves in kind of this galactic peace period. So that's really where our story begins, roughly about 100 years or so before the beginning of Episode One, The Phantom Menace, and we're introduced to a bunch of different awesome characters in this show. We'll talk about each of them just briefly here a bit. I just wanted to preface our discussion of the characters in the show by asking you, amongst sort of the main characters in the show, are there any that stood out to you, or maybe any one in particular that stood out to you as one that you were drawn towards or thought might be your favorite as we begin this journey with a new show?
So the one that I knew about going into it was Venestra Rowe,
Hmm.
which is the Jedi that has that kind of the whip lightsaber.
Hmm.
Because she is around during the High Republic books as well.
Right.
So that's how I know of her. And I'll be honest, I read one book that she was in, so I know there's a lot more stories, around her and her stories. So just knowing that, that we can go back right now if we wanted and have a pretty good amount of information on her.
Mhm.
Um, that's pretty cool to have that right now. You and I unfortunately are not the best at the reading of the books, and keeping up with the comic books and everything like that. But at some point, I hope to think that we will be. I have a stack of books. I've been going to like Half Price Bookstore. Do you have that
Mm,
by you?
absolutely,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So
absolutely.
they always have like the Star Wars books in their own section,
Yes.
and they're always like very like they're way discounted because they're
Super
normally
cheap. Yeah, super
yeah,
cheap.
the novels are normally 25 bucks, 30 bucks, and you can get them for like
Yeah.
9 bucks sometimes. So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna grab this in the thought that eventually I will get around to it. So I definitely have a few High Republic books that are collecting dust on my shelves, and Vanessa Rowe is just waiting to be read about.
I went into a Half Price Books, like, 6 months ago, and, there was a novelization of The Empire Strikes Back. $2.
Two,
I was
I mean,
like,
I'd
I
get
I
that. You know
I
what I
was
mean?
yeah, I was like, I'd be foolish not to get it, so I was like, "Okay, I'm buying a $2 copy of the novelization of Empire Strikes Back." Will I ever read it? I don't know, but it's 2 bucks, so why would I not buy it?
Exactly.
Yeah, Half Price Books has got some cool Star Wars stuff like that, but, anyways, yeah, like you said with Vanessa Rowe, a character who's seen throughout the High Republic era in the novels and in the comics, and if I'm not mistaken, I think she's like a Padawan throughout the majority of
Mm.
those books, I
Hmm.
I wanna say.
Yeah, obviously she's
Um,
much younger. Yeah.
yeah, so the High Republic novels, I think, for the most part, take place, like, roughly 100 years before the Acolyte. So,
Hmm.
I don't know what that puts us at, like, around, like, 230, roughly, BBY, I wanna say. Um, so, I guess I don't know what species I should know that. I don't know what species she is, but this would be, like, 100 years later, whatever species she is, so,
Hmm.
yeah, so she's like a Jedi Knight at this point. Something I did also learn about the High Republic era in anticipation of the Acolyte coming out is that at this time, Jedi not only had the brown cloaks that we're used to wearing them see, but they also had these like gold and white with gold cloaks that they wore when they were in the temple. Um, but if you're watching the video version of the podcast, because Vanessa Rose wearing a brown cloak, that would indicate maybe we'll get to see her in some field action because at this point in the High Republic, they wore those cloaks only when they were out like in battle in the field. So,
Hmm.
anyways, that's a good one to bring up too. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to see what she's gonna.
Her species is Miri Allen, which is the
Mary Allen.
same as Luminara
Oh,
and
really?
Bear Softy.
I did not know she was the same species.
Hmm.
Okay. I guess I can kind of see it on the image. She's got the same sort of like tattoo. I don't know if it's a tattoo or not, but the same pattern of what Barris and Luminara have kind of on their cheeks and on their chin area. So,
Hmm.
yeah, nice call out there. That's a good one. Um, yeah. So the main characters for the Acolyte, I think the first one that often comes to the forefront of the conversation, his name is Soul, Jedi Master Soul. For those of you who have seen Squid Games, you may not recognize this Jedi. But Jedi Master Soul is a wise, highly respected Jedi Master, strong in the ways of the Force, still and stalwart, and has a deep sense of compassion and will defend those who cannot defend themselves. He's a powerful warrior with intense emotions that he uses his Jedi training to balance. We also do know about him that he is May, the supposedly former Jedi Padawan. He's May's former master, but he's also in the process when we meet him in the show of investigating these recent Jedi murders. And his current Padawan is someone we'll talk about in a bit, but he's currently the master to Padawan Jecki Lawn. And so that's kind of where we open up with his story. Something, Joey, about him that I kind of get the vibe that he's very similar to Luke in the sequel trilogy, I'm getting, in that he's a
Mm.
good guy, but it feels like there's something he's done in his past that he might be ashamed of, maybe that drove May away from being his Padawan.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. What do you think about that theory?
I think that's a good one. I mean, the fact that this poster, and for those watching the video version of the podcast, you could see the poster image here. On the backside of it, it did mention his emotions.
Mhm.
And as you know, Jedi, they have to kind of push that away. So it seems like he's battling with something like that. And to your theory, yeah, that would make sense that maybe, something he messed up, he feels like he messed up to push May away.
Mhm.
So I think that's the most interesting part about him. I mean, that he is, and can I just say, Asian with a jet with a lightsaber, pretty awesome. You know what I'm saying? I love to see. We were so close with Chirrut from Rogue One, but we got a legitimate Asian with a lightsaber. I love it. Anyway, uh, I think that the emotion part of it, I think that's what's going to be key to this particular character. And if it is because of what had happened with me in the past, what have you, I think that's a good call. I think that would be a good call.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's gonna be a reveal at some point where even the people who maybe feel close to him, maybe who are Jedi, like, learn something about him that they didn't know, and maybe that's gonna drive a wedge emotionally between him and perhaps other characters in the show, maybe even, like, characters who might align with May because they feel like somehow Soul did something to,
Mm,
betray May's trust or something at some point, but, of course, that a lot of that is speculation, but then again, that's what today's episode is all about, speculating about the Acolyte.
that's the fun part.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see this guy. He's gonna be probably one of my favorite characters if I had to guess, from the Acolyte, but did you wanna touch anything else on Soul before we move on to our second character who many Matrix fans might be familiar with?
No, I want to talk about her right now.
Well, fans of The Matrix rejoice. Carrie-Anne Moss has arrived in Star Wars playing, uh, Jedi Master Indara. Master Indara is a Jedi Master of great physical and mental skill. She has exacting control of her Force abilities, exuding a sense of command and authority with just her presence. Though she does not seek combat, she is skilled enough to engage on her own terms. So something just right off the bat about her description that I'm kind of picking up on is she feels somewhat more of a grounded and perhaps even more mature Jedi than Soul is described as. Soul feels very almost Anakin-esque, like led and really driven by intense emotion, whereas Indara is kind of giving me more Obi-Wan vibes, like kind of grounded, a sense of command and authority. Doesn't necessarily seek combat, but she can hold her own in that regard. Um, in many of the trailers and teasers for The Acolyte, we've seen a lot of Carrie-Anne Moss's character of Endara featured, particularly in a fight against May that takes place, looks like in a tavern of some kind or a cantina, perhaps. Um, are you excited to see? I think I know the answer. Are you excited to
Yeah.
see Carrie-Anne Moss as a
Yes.
Jedi?
Yes. 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 I mean, even in the photo here, she just commands a certain type of respect, almost like a calm. I mean, she's got the green. First of all, green lightsaber. Hello,
Mhm.
she's got that, and it looks like she's using some force power here to maybe stop somebody, some or move something. Just a very powerful image here in her character poster. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what Carrie Ann Moss, great actor, loved her in all of the Matrix films, and I mean hasn't aged a bit. I don't think. Looks like,
She looks
I
the
mean,
same, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think she's gonna do really well in this role. You kind of saw, in every it felt like every trailer, every teaser, at least a couple shots, a couple scenes of her fighting May, and it just looks great. So
Mm.
if this is the part that is the misplaced fighting, I mean, I couldn't imagine, because it just looks so good. The
Yeah.
choreography looks great, so I'm excited to see her for sure.
Are they gonna slip in like a twisting in the air in slow motion at
If
some point
if
in
they
that
don't,
fight?
I'm deleting Disney Plus because they need to have their Matrix moment in there.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see, Jedi Master Endara. Probably gonna be, like, the most grounded Jedi character in this show, which maybe that I mean, it's not unheard of for shows like, um, I guess any show really, not just shows like Star Wars, but it's not unheard of to take a character that is one of, if not the most well-known member of the cast, and then have the bad or evil character, like, kill them off at the towards the beginning to make
Mhm.
the audience more, like, invested in not liking the evil character.
I don't like
Uh,
this.
I know, I don't hope it happens, I'm just saying
It better be
uh
episode 8 is all I'm saying.
yeah, yeah, we want plenty of Carrie-Anne Moss in our Star Wars, but it's a possibility. Speaking of the bad character, next up, we've got May, played by none other than Amandla Steinberg. This is, as we previously mentioned, Jedi Master Soul's former Padawan, and is the person that he's going to have to team up with apparently to solve these Jedi murders. And so May is a mysterious young woman with a tragic past. She gets swept up into a sinister mystery one that puts her into a center of a conflict in unexpected ways. She is determined to exact vengeance on those who wronged her, and little can stop May on her quest. What that quest is, we're not exactly sure though. I guess that's really the question we're going to be asking ourselves quite a bit throughout this show. And I almost like I want to relate to May in a little bit
Of
in
course you
some
would.
way. Yeah. Well,
Shocking.
it just feels like they're setting up the story
Yeah,
for there to be like a re-confrontation between her and Soul at some point. And it just based on the way that like the marketing is doing the trailers and the teasers, it feels like May is innocent, but we're gonna have to like get to the point to believe she is. But that the Jedi think she's not. And so she's being like casted as this character who clearly has issues with the Jedi, but maybe in some way is being framed or not. I don't know. The other big thing about May is that there is a huge, uh, widely adopted fan theory right now that it's not just May who Amandla Steinberg is playing, that she's actually playing another character who is the twin of May, who many I don't know if this is a leak or if this is a speculative name, but OSHA has been supposedly the name, which is the twin of May. One apparently being the good-sided twin, the other one apparently being the dark-sided twin. I like the idea of this story, and we talked about it a little bit in last week's podcast episode. But what are your thoughts just generally on May and kind of the direction that we might be headed with her story, having a twin that is like being kept I don't wanna say close to the chest because it feels like they've revealed it, but I mean, like, in the posters, for example, like, there's 2 of Amandla Steinberg, and
mhm,
one of them is, like, shrouded and the other one isn't. What do you think?
right. Yeah, I mean, the fact that we have critics saying that she did such a good job,
Mhm,
on the episodes that they watched, yeah, now I'm super excited to see what the character of May slash Osha is gonna be for, for Star Wars here. And kind of like what you're saying, yeah, I mean, definitely the word that they used in her character poster was vengeance. Vengeance is a
mhm,
big word. It's she needs to clear her name. Maybe she's the Ahsoka before Ahsoka got Ahsoka'd, and
mm,
the Jedi, they're not always right. I'm just saying they're not always right. So who knows what what her quest is? I mean, the fact that they use the word quest now is just like it seems like this is something that's been ongoing for a minute. So I'm curious to see where that quest began, even
mm.
where if it was the wrongdoing of Soul or another Jedi. Yeah, so obviously with her being, I mean, essentially the namesake of the show, right? This is probably the Acolyte. You better have a strong story. You better have a strong reason for being, the lead actor in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of kind of like what was that movie that Tom Hardy was in where he played both brothers, and then critics, when they watch a Tom Hardy film where he plays multiple roles, are just like, "Oh my gosh, that was awesome."
Was
I
it
I f
twins? Oh no, that's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
I don't know, but, like, whenever an actor plays this like, different characters that are twins, I just feel like the critics most often are like, "Oh man, that was incredible, great performance."
Mm.
Uh, I feel like Amanda Steinberg might fall in that category, but also let us know what your thoughts are. Does May have a twin? It's feeling more and more like that might be the case. Excited to find out that here in just a week's time as well. Our next character is one who I would be surprised if they had like a huge role in the show. It feels more so just like a cool addition for the sake of being a cool addition. Um, is a Wookiee Jedi who's named Kel Naka. Kel Naka is a Wookiee Jedi master and has sequestered himself in the tangled jungles of Kofar. He is a loner who lives a solitary life, which is interesting too, Joey, because I feel like everything I've ever seen or I guess read about Wookiees is that they tend to be like communal creatures.
Mhm.
Like I don't think they very often live in solitary, like in a solitary way. So yeah, I mean that's kind of I don't know if that's just to add to the like ascetic Jedi nature that he is embodying, but I don't know. I don't have too many expectations for this character, if I'm being honest, other than just seeing a Wookiee wield a lightsaber. I think that'd be pretty cool. Do you have any hopes for this character in particular?
It reminded me when we first started this podcast, Ben,
Mhm.
that, he's got that man bun on top of his head, so that
Oh,
was the first
yeah.
thing
Yeah.
when Ben used to sport the man bun.
I don't have mine anymore.
But yeah, I feel the same way about this character. I mean, it's cool to see different species as Jedi. I think that's like the coolest thing, right? Is that pretty much anyone can be a Jedi if you have the right M count or whatever it is. I forget where we left off with all that, but I think to see a Wookiee in in Jedi. I guess he's not wearing a robe, Jedi garb, or anything like that, but to wield a lightsaber. And I know there was a very popular one um, in the High Republic books as well. I think
Mm.
his name is Buryaga. I could be wrong with that name, but it's pretty close to it. So, a lot there was some speculation that this Wookiee was going to be that Wookiee from the books, but it seems like it's somebody different. So, but yeah, like you said, kind of shocking that they're in a solitary lifestyle. I think about the last time we may have seen a force sensitive Wookiee and Gunji on the Bad Batch. I feel like
Yep.
that they were definitely a part of a family, So to see a Wookiee not being a part of a tribe or a part of their family, and I just remember I remember from Solo, I think there was when we first got introduced to Chewbacca, who ended up being Chewbacca. That there was a part where they ended up freeing the Wookiees, and uh, I forget who was asking Han or who was asking somebody like, "Well, what is he saying?" He's saying that they're their family. So I mean, there's definitely a lot of family group um, uh, dynamics within the Wookiees. So to see him by himself is almost kind of sad, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I don't have a lot of expectations for this character, but a fun addition nonetheless. And oh, also being played by Jonas Suotamo. I hope I said the last name correctly. The same actor that took over for Peter Mayhew in the role of Chewbacca in several different Star Wars productions, both the sequel trilogy and Solo, I believe, as well. He played Chewbacca in both those movies. So, anyways, reprising a Wookiee role as Kelnaka. The poor guy can't get cast as anything other than a Wookiee because he's 7'4" or whatever he is. But anyways, cool to see him returning in another role. The next character we were going to look at is Jackie Lawn, being played by Daphne Keene, who we have seen a scene in one of the trailers where she is uh, fighting May, and so it's like the former, Padawan of Soul versus the current Padawan of Soul, because Jekki is the current Padawan of Jedi Master Soul. Jekki is a skilled and studious Padawan learner and shows great promise in her path to becoming a Jedi Knight. The Padawan apprentice to Master Soul is young, but she projects calm and conducts herself with maturity. Um, I'm really excited to see. what the dynamic is between her and May in particular.
Mm, mhm.
I could definitely see there being some, like, on the part of May towards Jackie, like you have to know this thing that I know about Jedi Master Soul because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he did me wrong in some way or another,
He'll
and
do that to you.
yeah, exactly. So I feel like that conversation is definitely going to come at some point in this show. But in one of the trailers, there's a part where I think May is like behind her and has a knife,
Right.
and she's like overtaken her in combat or something like that. So
Kill Bill.
Kill Bill, yeah, yeah,
Yikes.
yeah. She does seem like a pretty cool character. I don't know, doesn't seem like she's going to be featured quite as much as Soul or May, but certainly will be a prominent character in the show nonetheless. Did you have any expectations for Jackie Lon? Will she best May in combat?
I have the opposite thought of her is that she will be around a little bit more than
Mm,
what we expect because, if you ever think of anytime there is a master and apprentice on the Jedi side of things, they're always together. You know,
mhm,
they're always right next to each other. Look at Anakin and Obi-Wan, look at um Ahsoka and Anakin, look at, so you could, you have many instances where, whenever there was one, there was the other. So I would assume we would see a little bit more of her. Maybe not as much as Soul or as Indara, but I think she will actually have probably a bigger role than to be expected.
yeah, yeah, I think that's a good call. I mean, I don't really know. I guess, yeah, I guess this would be like High Republic era. So yeah, seeing her go around with everywhere where Jedi Master Soul is going could very well be. But nonetheless, there's gonna very likely be tension between her and May at some point in this show, as we've seen in at least one of the trailers. So a cool character, and I don't know. I don't think she'll end up being like in cahoots with whoever the bad guy is in this show. I'd be surprised, at least. I'll put it that way. But I guess it's always not an option out there that she could be. But yeah, I'd be surprised. Jackie strikes me as someone who's gonna be with the good side
Mhm.
till the end of the Acolyte, at least. We've got 3 more characters. One of them we've already kind of touched on, but the next one we wanted to talk about is another Jedi whose name is Yord Fandar or Fondar, perhaps. Yord Fondar is a Jedi Knight and Temple Guard, but he's also known as an overachiever and rule follower, and his need to do things by the book can often cloud his mind. He seems like someone who's very passionate, probably, about whatever it is that he believes in, what he cares about. But at the same time, just the description of this character makes me feel like he's not going to make it to the end of the show.
Yeah, right, right.
Like, he's gotta do it by the book, he's gotta do it the right way. I feel like that character never makes it to the end. I don't know. What do
Yeah,
you
right.
think? What did
Rip. I'm thinking of tech. I just think of tech when during this is just
Yeah.
the one the logical one, the one that'll always choose logic over everything else. I feel like he's probably that, and yeah, given the opportunity, maybe he makes the wrong decision because it's the right decision, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll see what happens with him. I'm interested in this character too because it's, with the Jedi you have, kind of these different characters, although they have the same like morals, the same values, or they're supposed to have the same values. They are all individuals after all. So we'll see what happens with this character.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of him. It just doesn't feel like he's gonna, like you said, might make the wrong decision that's actually the right decision. Yeah, I like the way
Right.
you put that, but well, we did already talk a little bit about Vermestra Rowe from the High Republic novels with the purple whip lightsaber. So we probably won't touch too much more on her just for the sake of time, but I just want to reiterate that it's really cool that we're getting the addition and the inclusion of a High Republic character. And hopefully she has a prominent role in the show, being portrayed by Rebecca Henderson, by the way. So looking forward to seeing what Vermestra Rose, say that 10 times fast, what her role will be in
Vernestra with an N.
Vernestra. And
Vernestra
what was I saying? Was I saying
with a
Vermestra?
Yeah, I thought I heard an M in there. Yeah.
I might have said an M. Vernestraro,
Yeah.
in the Acolyte here next week. So the last character we're gonna focus on today, I believe is pronounced Quimir or Quimir, perhaps, portrayed by Manny Jacinto, who is from The Good Place. I haven't seen The Good Place, but I've heard
Ooh,
it's a
it's a good
great
one.
show. Yeah, I've wanted to watch it. I've heard really positive reviews, but um, he's a former smuggler who is now making his living as a trader. Trader, like trading goods,
Hmm.
not like a trader to something. Um, but there's a scene in one of the trailers where he explicitly says something very anti-Jedi, and he's saying, the Jedi seek to gain peace at any cost, that peace is a lie. Which the interesting thing about this, I can't take credit for this because this was a fan theory that I saw online. But one of the lines he says in the trailer is, of course, peace is a lie. Which, if you look up the Sith code, the first line of the Sith code is peace is a lie. So, all I'm saying, he could be the mysterious dark.
So it's him.
Yeah, yeah,
It's Manny Jacinto. I love it. Or
yeah,
Kamir.
yeah. The
Yeah,
full quote that he says is the Jedi justify their galactic dominance in the name of peace, but that peace is a lie.
I like
Oh,
it.
what were you gonna say something? Sorry, I think I cut you off a bit.
No, I really like this actor.
Mhm.
I'm interested in seeing how he's gonna do. If you haven't seen the Good Place, he's kind of like, and I don't know any other way to put this, like the male bimbo of the crew, like just kind of flighty, doesn't really know what's going on. He's good looking, but he doesn't understand really what's going on. He has to be explained to, things have to be explained to them all the time. So I am excited to see how he can kind of break out of that particular shell.
Mm.
And I mean, this is kind of the smuggler. You think of Han, you think of Lando, you think of hopefully this guy now. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see this character again. Another Filipino in Star Wars, so shout out to to Manny. But yeah, I'm excited to see what he has to bring to. Just because yeah, because you can't always just have Jedis and Siths. You got to have people that are kind of, on neither side, and he seems like he could be.
Or does he have to be
Or
a
does he?
Sith?
Yeah, yeah. Or is he the actual Sith?
We'll find out, I guess. But hey, how would you be disappointed if your favorite character ends up being like the primary antagonist of the show?
No, not at all. That'd be great.
Okay, okay, okay. There you go.
Even better.
Yep. Well, now that we've taken a look at some of the main characters that we're going to be getting to meet next week during the premiere of The Acolyte, we're going to play a quick game called Who Will Survive? I'm going to give you each of the 8 characters we just mentioned, and
Okay.
briefly with a yes or no, you're going to, and you can rationalize it if you want, but briefly with a yes or no, will they survive?
Like
Uh,
throughout the season, you're saying, right?
yeah, like at the end
Uh,
of episode 8, the end of
okay.
season 1, are they alive or not?
Got you. Okay.
All right. Jedi Master Soul, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. I would probably say yes to for him.
Hmm.
Jedi Master Indara.
No.
I was also gonna say no. We're gonna lose our poor Carrie Ann Moss.
You
May.
convinced me. That was actually your fault. Because
My
when you said
apologies.
that, I'm like, that's actually a good point.
Yeah, yeah. May. How about May? Is she gonna survive the whole season?
She will.
Okay. I'm gonna lean yes on this one too, actually.
But Osha
Kelnaka.
will not, though.
Oh, okay, okay.
Mm,
That's OSHA will not. So the good one won't, but the bad one will.
correct.
Okay. Okay. I like that. I'd have to do more thinking. I feel like just to be different because we've said the same thing so far, I'll say they both survive.
Okay.
Kelnaka.
Survives.
I was gonna say survives for him too. Jackie Lawn. See, I'm on the fence on this one.
Yeah,
I'm on the
I'm
fence.
on the
Yeah.
fence with this one too. I'm
Yeah.
going to, just because one of us has to pick and I'll be the bad guy, I will say that she does not survive.
Ooh, okay. I was leaning that way too,
Oh,
actually.
okay. I mean, you can lean that way as well. That's fine.
I'll say that she doesn't survive as
Okay,
well.
okay.
Yord Fondar. The
I
goody two shoes overachiever.
I know we said he might make the wrong choice, but actually is the right choice. I'm gonna say that he does survive though.
Okay, okay. I hmm, I feel like both he and Jackie won't both not make it.
Mhm.
So I'm like
I feel that same too.
I'm kind of regretting my Jackie pick just a little bit, but I feel more strongly about him than I do Jackie. So I'll say he doesn't survive.
Okay.
All right, Vernestra Rowe.
Oh gosh. I she survives.
I was gonna say survives for her. I feel like they can't kill off a character that's so beloved by a specific
Yeah,
subset
true.
of fans, from the High Republic.
Yeah.
All right, lastly, Quamir, perhaps.
The Sith? Yeah, he'll survive.
I'm gonna say he does,
Okay.
only because he's gonna be like the fully realized villain of season 2.
Ah, I like it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, anyways, those are our thoughts on who will and won't survive. Now that we have officially hit the 1 hour mark, we've received the warning signal from Gibbo. And our last segment of today's podcast is simply what we each want the most from the Acolyte. You want me to start us off, or you want to go first?
You can start off first. Let's hear what you gotta say.
Well, I kind of already alluded to mine. I think at the beginning of the episode, I simply want something that is a well developed, true mystery. I want to feel genuinely surprised, not just at like how good the show is, but like I want there to be reveals within the plot that I didn't see coming. I think that's really a good mark of a true mystery. And then, kind of lastly, with that, I would love if somewhere at the end of the show they just drop something that no one saw coming.
Mhm.
Um, Basically, the way to summarize what I want is that I want them to like fully live up to it being a mystery thriller. Like, I wanna feel shocked, I wanna feel surprised,
Right.
and still obviously be a great show at the same time. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm most looking forward to. And then, of course, it's High Republic era. Just seeing more Jedi on screen is always really
Right.
fun. Yeah, so what about you?
My biggest ask would be that it's a story that makes sense in the world of Star Wars. You know,
Mm,
that it's not just something that is kind of on the side and you're like, what why does this even really matter? You know?
sure.
Um I mean, if it is truly a Sith, if it's truly the kind of the return of the Sith, if they address why, in the prequels they thought there were no Sith at this time, if they're able to kind of do all those little things, and maybe they're not little, but we've talked it time and time again, kind of interweave with everything else. And even if it's to High Republic's, source, even if it's to those books, if they reference someone like Avar Chris, if they mention, you know, I mean, we have Vernestra Rowe in here, so we know that there's connections, but to have this story make sense in the world of Star Wars, why is this story important to tell? And and maybe this isn't maybe that doesn't happen in season one. I'm not sure, but at the overall reason for having the Acolyte series to come out at all, what is this? What is the importance that we have here? That's from a larger sense. That's kind of what I want,
Mm.
because I could easily have a great time with the story. I mean, the fighting looks great, however misplaced, and it just looks like it's going to be a great show. But in the grand scheme of things, I just wanted to kind of make sense in this world.
Nice. Like, within the context of what we know as Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
I hope it will. I would be shocked if they didn't, like, think that people weren't gonna have questions about that that piece in particular that people seem to be focusing on now that, like, "Oh, how the Jedi said they didn't know in The Phantom Menace about the Sith,"
Yeah,
so
there has to be just one person at Disney that's their job.
right, yeah,
They'll call them the actually police. Actually, those guys. That'll come up in comments sometimes. I think that they need to have that person there. That is an important
right,
role. So I
right.
would assume that they have that. But if not, then I guess we'll find out in the next 7 weeks or so.
Which begs the question if the dark side force user is actually a Sith or not. It would lead me to believe maybe not, but,
Hmm.
we'll see, we'll see. You know what's so funny? Like, when they announced this show 3 or 4 years ago, I was under the impression it was gonna be like an Emperor Palpatine origin story. And now here we are, like, 3 or 4 years later, and I'm, like, nowhere near what I thought the show was gonna be
Right,
about,
right. Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's what makes it exciting. It's gonna be something that we're an era we're relatively unfamiliar with lots of characters who we get to meet for the first time. Gonna be a really fun, exciting ride. And going into it all, we want to pose a viewer question to each of you that we teased at the beginning of the episode. Simply, are you excited for the Acolyte? Scale of 1 to 10. How's everyone feeling out there? Are you busting through the roof at a 12 out of 10, or are you not feeling it at like a -4 out of 10? Let us know down in the comments below. I mean, I'm certainly closer to the high end of that scale, and I think you would probably say the same. But this week's question of the week: are you excited for the Acolyte? Let us know on the socials and in the comments of the video version of the podcast, which takes us directly into our premiere or our teaser of next week's podcast episode. We're going to be talking all things Acolyte premiere, both episodes 1 and 2, because we are getting 2 episodes next Wednesday evening. And with that in mind, because the episodes are coming out on Wednesday evening, we are pushing the release of the podcast to Friday, and we will be releasing our reactions on the YouTube channel for Hoth Hangout. The episode 1 reaction will be out Thursday early morning. The episode 2 reaction will probably be out Thursday early afternoon. And so reactions on Thursday after the episode premieres on Wednesday night, and then the podcast next week covering the premiere will be available on Friday. So stay tuned for all of that. It is a very busy, exciting time to be a Star Wars fan. Looking forward to watching the Acolyte here with you next week, Joey, and hopefully with all those of you watching the reactions with us as well. Want to say a quick reminder to those of you who are not yet subscribed to the Hoth Hangout YouTube channel, check it out over there for the video version of every podcast, as well as our reactions to the latest Star Wars TV shows and episodes, including The Acolyte, which we'll be watching next week. Be on the lookout for it. Shoot us your thoughts, comments, or questions to our email at hothhangout@gmail.com if you have any Star Wars thoughts. We'd love to showcase them here on the pod. Additionally, you can find the Hoth Hangout podcast anywhere you get your pods, including both Spotify and Apple. And if you're listening on either of those platforms or any platform that allows you to leave a 5-star review, leave a 5-star review on the podcast. We would appreciate it very much. And it also does allow the pod to be more easily discovered by other folks who love Star Wars as well. You can also find us on the socials, whether it be TikTok, Instagram, or X, at Hoth Hangout on each of those, and the Hoth Hangout community Discord server. Link is available in the show notes of today's episode. Definitely check it out and join and see what it's all about with lots of other folks who love Star Wars as well. Lastly, want to say a big thank you to Gibbo for producing today's show, video, and assets, who is stronger than any lightsaber wielding Wookiee, including Kelnaka or Chewbacca or any other Wookiee. What was it? The one from Bad Batch?
Gunji.
Gunji, there it was. Yeah. Joey, any last thoughts or before we say farewell for today's episode?
Well, I think farewell is fitting here to a particular stream room
Oh
that
yes,
we're
I forgot
yeah.
to
So
mention.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is the last time I'll be recording from this room. Next time, for those of you watching the video version of the podcast, you see me, I will have moved dwelling spaces into my new place. So, this is the last time I'll be recording from this room. So, uh, yeah, oh 07's to the OG recording room, but we'll see you in the new recording room next week. I'll be watching The Acolyte from my new setup, which is pretty fun to think about. That'll be the very first thing I get to do in the new setup. So,
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, this was I always like the prediction ones. We'll see in 8 weeks or whatever. We'll go back and see what our predictions were, and run it back and see if we were right in any of them or none of them, or well, especially with the ones who will survive the season here. So I'm excited for the next several weeks of watching this show, and reacting with you guys. And yeah, great time to be a Star Wars fan as always. We've been waiting for the Acolyte for, like you said, years at this point.
mm.
So it's finally here, and we're all excited for it.
finally here. It'll be here next week. We're looking forward to it very much. Thanks again so much to each of you listening or watching today's episode. I want to say a shout out to George Lucas, shout out to Dave Filoni, shout out to all the actors and the creators involved with the Acolyte. We're excited to check out what is in store for us next week. And thank you again to Gibbo for producing today's show. Gibbo, sub 70 minutes. Actually, we just went over 70 minutes. I lied. We did it in 71 minutes today, everybody. So tune in next week when we'll be talking about not
Clap,
one, but
clap.
2 episodes. Not
Thank you.
one, but 2 episodes of The Acolyte in next week's podcast discussion. So who knows how long we're going to go then. But once again, we appreciate each and every single one of you for listening or watching. And until next time in episode 83, when we'll be discussing all things Acolyte premiere, thanks so much for listening to this one. And may the force be with you.